How do we pray in a crisis like the one we're living through at the moment? Well, I think King Hezekiah in 2 Kings 19 and verses 14 to 19 gives us a brilliant model for prayer. He's threatened by the king of Assyria, who's written this letter threatening to overwhelm and invade his land. And how he responds, Hezekiah, to this letter, I think is instructive for all of us today. Firstly, King Hezekiah isn't overwhelmed and he doesn't panic, but instead he takes that letter and he brings it to God. It says that in verse 14, he spreads it out before the Lord in the place of prayer, which was the temple. Secondly, in verse 15, instead of focusing on the problem, he looks to God. He lifts his eyes to God and he sees that God rules and reigns, that he created the heavens and the earth, and he chooses to focus there. In verse 16, then, he cries out to God that God would hear, that God would see all that's happening in the world around him. And then in verses 17 to 18, he isn't afraid to tell the truth to himself and to God. But then in verse 19, he asks that God would rescue and that God would deliver. I think it's a brilliant model for us today in the crisis that we face. Maybe take a look at that passage and use it for our own prayers today. God bless you all.